When it comes to Sword of the Demon Hunter, it's one of those rare anime that starts with a whole hour to set things up, and while it teases a lot of good things, due to a time jump at the end of the episode, there is a recognition that that could potentially unravel everything. So, starting in the past, Suzune and Genta, when they're kids, they have an unfortunately abusive father who beats on Suzune, especially because Suzune appears to be demon, or at least half demon. And because Genta loves her so much, he runs away with her with really no direction of where to go. But thankfully, a man named Maharu, he rescues him, takes him to the village that he is the protector of, Kadona, and even integrates him into his family with his daughter Shirayuki. Now, as time goes on, Shirayuki doesn't just see Genta like an adoptive brother and Suzune like an adoptive sister, but when it comes to Genta specifically, she catches feelings and they're reciprocated. However, unfortunately, Shirayuki's line is that of the princess, who pretty much is isolated from the rest of the village, is considered this sacred entity, and generally speaking, that person's love life is very much dictated by the chieftain. Now, despite the whole village knowing Genta and Shirayuki have feelings for each other, the chieftain decides to push his son, Kiyomosa, into being a person that Shirayuki's supposed to mate with in order to continue her line. Now, Genta is told this by Shirayuki. They spend the final day together to try to just set aside their feelings for their duties, because Genta becomes a new sentinel like Shirayuki's father is in order to protect her. But of course, the problem with that is he would not only be protecting Shirayuki, but also be very much aware of what she is doing with Kiyomosa. Now, Suzune is somebody who, as we learned, is not only someone who sees Genta as a brother, but similar to Shirayuki, she does have feelings for him. But it seems she was more than okay enough with Shirayuki and Genta being together just to see her brother happy, even if it meant that romantically he wouldn't reciprocate her feelings. However, a demon with foresight comes about with another demon who fights Genta, and the foresight demon shows Suzune what Shirayuki's going to do with Kiyomosa, and when confronted, Shirayuki doesn't say anything against what the demon said or denies anything. And granted, she wasn't necessarily given a chance to really explain herself, but before you know it, Suzune no longer is this child eternally, perpetually, whatever the word is, but instead she becomes a full-grown adult. And as this happens, she goes to potentially harm Shirayuki, and luckily for Shirayuki at the moment, Genta just got finished killing the other demon who has now seemingly possessed him, and he is able to get there just before Shirayuki dies by Suzune's hand. And from that point on, it seems that Suzune and Genta have been potentially battling for eons with the possibility that there is no reconciliation between them because of Shirayuki's death and how Genta rejected Suzune's feelings. And that leads us into the modern times where sometime in 1970, we see Genta, who is very much in modern clothing, and we're led to believe that this is where the show is mostly going to take place, with Genta once again seeking out his sister, who maybe 170 years ago when this show began in the 1800s, he may have not been able to forgive or even reconcile with Suzune, but now he has the potential to do so after all these years, though considering how Suzune was talking when she and Genta were no longer friendly with each other, it seems like if they see each other, it's going to be an on-site battle. Getting to the review section. What I appreciate is that not too many anime do hour-long episodes. Never mind, there's not a lot of anime that covers the entire backstory for you to understand the issues between the hero and the would-be lead villain all in one episode. But when it comes to Sword of the Demon Hunter, There's no breaking that down throughout the entire season. It's all concise in one episode. Everything makes sense as to why the villain is the way they are, why the hero has an issue with the villain, and also potentially what's the goal of the hero. It's not necessarily to kill Suzune because there's still some kind of love there. It's just that love turned to hate in the moment, and with that, a lot of cruel things were said, and the villain likely is not over it. But from what it seems, Genta is willing to try to reconcile and maybe get back into good graces so that they could at least be a family again, and just wanting to see if that's possible. Never mind seeing Suzune and Genta fight each other again. It leads to a lot of interest. But one of the main issues we have with Sword of the Demon Hunter is, with this being firmly established for most of the episode in the 1800s, and then it jumping to 1970, that's a major shift. And as much as the relationship that's at the core of the show is complicated, rich, and could definitely carry it, I feel like we almost like being reintroduced to everything in this show all over again, since it's now doing such a major time jump. And with that, it's hard to say whether or not this show is going to continue to be good, if it's going to be something that peaks early on. Yet at the same time, I feel already so invested based off of getting an hour of Suzune and Genta that my fingers are crossed and I'm hoping for the best.